Jerusalem, Israel. Not to be confused with the capital city of Israel.
Because apparently there is no capital city.
There is no capital city of Israel, even though the Knesset is there in Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
The prime minister is in Jerusalem. It's not the capital.
Yeah, they've got no place to conduct business, government business in Israel.
No,
it's
there's
weird.
none. There's none.
There's no capital city
place
there.
Now CNN is reporting and using the term for Jerusalem as the international city. The international city of Jerusalem. Meaning, let's bring in the UN because this city belongs to the world, not to Israel. You know, there's nobody that has protected Israel and Jerusalem and the holy sites better than the people of Israel. The holy sites are protected by Israel.
Mm-hmm.
The mosques, the Christian sites, and the Jewish sites, all protected by Israel. You think the UN's going to do a better job than that? Not on your life. Not on your life. You think the Muslims are going to? Not on your life. Yesterday, the State Department came out and would not distance themselves from our ally Turkey, who said that Israel was conducting terrorist strikes, saying that they were terrorist and engaged in terrorist activity. And our State Department would not distance themselves from that and say that that was wrong. Well, I couldn't believe it, but there was a scattered shower of journalism that broke out. Finally, somebody from the Associated Press actually said this. Listen.
You say that it would not be helpful for you to discuss any of your conversations, that quiet diplomacy is the way to de-escalate that. Well, you've been doing your quiet diplomacy now for almost a week. How's it going so far?
We are working hard with the parties. We're working hard with
Hasn't it occurred to anybody that maybe being less quiet might get more results? The squeaky wheel gets greased, that kind of thing?
I'll let the
You're staying silent while people are dying left and right.
Matt, we are being far from silent. The president
You're not telling us anything about what you're. When the Turks come out, when the leaders of Turkey come out and say that Israel is engaged in acts of terrorism, and you refuse to say that you don't agree with that, or maybe you do agree with it, that's being silent.
Matt, we have made a decision that we need to engage in our diplomatic work diplomatically. We have been very, very clear about where we stand on this, which is that we don't practice diplomacy from the podium. We have been very clear that Israel has a right of self-defense. We've been very clear that rockets continue to be fired and land on Israel. We've been very clear that we are working to try to get this conflict de-escalated. We have been very clear about our concern for the civilians and innocents on both sides who are getting cut in this.
You won't stick up for your ally Israel when the Turks, another one of your allies, say that they're engaged in terrorism in Gaza.
We have been extremely clear about our concern for Israel's security, about the fact that Israel has a right to self-defense, but I am not going to go further than that today.
Why can't you say that you don't agree with the Turks?
Because I'm not going to get into a public spitting match with allies on either side. We're just not going to do that.
And
okay?
You think that that's worse? A public spitting match with one of your allies is worse than hundreds of people dying every day?
I don't understand the question here. There's not a question here. You're just looking for a fight.
Isn't that? I mean, that's. I haven't heard anything like that
in
maybe
4 years.
Yeah, a long yes.
Yeah.
Since Bush.
Yeah, I haven't heard that since Bush. Right. I mean, it seems like forever.
Does.
But that's the way a journalist used to do its job.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear it anymore. You hear maybe one tough question, and then they back off immediately.
This guy would not.
This guy was pissed.
Leave it alone.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. We should all feel this way. We should all feel this way. This is, have we forgotten about 9/11? Have we really gotten to this place to where we don't see who these people are over in Gaza? We have.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the place to where we don't really care anymore. That's not terrorism. We don't know what that is. That's just about land. Bull crap, that's about land. They're talking about wiping the Jews off the face of the earth. And I got news for you. This is exactly what we said would happen a year ago. What we went to Jerusalem for was to say, stand with courage, and you're not alone. We did that a year ago, thinking that this, exactly what's going on, was going to happen last September, a year ago September. That's honestly what we thought. Well, we were early, but here it is. And the world is condemning Israel. Let me ask you a question. If Canada had shipped 8,000 missiles via Air Express into Buffalo, New York, if Canada was lobbing shells across the border, if Bellingham, Washington, or Blaine, Washington, was being shelled relentlessly over the border from Canada, if El Paso was being hit and shelled by Mexico, do you think we would sit here 8,000 shells later and not respond? Do you think we would listen to anybody?
Yeah, if Israel was telling us, hey, we don't want you to go in with troops. We don't want a ground assault into Canada. That'd be an inconvenient thing for us right now, so we'd like you to stand down if you would. There's no way.
There's no way. Now, Canada would be a different story. But Mexico, the world would say that to us. Mexico, we could have drug lords and terrorists lobbing shells into our southern border, and the world would say, they're poor, oppressed Mexicans. What are you doing? You're just trying to... Excuse me.
Same thing with Cuba. If it were Cuba, and they could launch rockets at us from 90 miles away into Miami, they'd say the same thing. Oh, you can't pick on a poor, defenseless country like Cuba. You leave them alone.
Well, and you're right. The world would say it, but there's no way we would accept it.
We would not listen to it.
The American people would not accept that. No.
I disagree. I believe there would be about half of the American people that would go for it now.
I don't know. Remember, if you're in Miami, you may be hitting minority communities. Then there may be some outrage. If it was going into...
Excuse me, this is the group. You're talking about Jews.
Yeah.
You're talking about Jews. Everybody. I mean, my gosh, I tried to defend the Jews, and I'm the biggest Jew hater in the world. This is the one that everybody says that they just love so much on the left.
Well, you are pro-Jewish anti-Semite.
Yeah, I know.
We do know that.
I am the biggest
we do know
Jew-loving anti-Semite I've ever met.
You're just an incompetent anti-Semite. You are terrible at it.
Maybe the worst.
Well, you know
ever.
what? That's the left. That's the left. The left is the most incompetent, Jew-loving people I've ever seen in my life. They're just totally incompetent, and that's being very, very kind. If you see the five times more likely to support Israel in this if you're a conservative and a Republican. I just wonder, all those Jewish Americans that voted for Barack Obama, how you feel about things now? How you feeling about things? Last night, for 2 nights in a row, I've had a hard time sleeping. Because if you don't see the writing on the wall on where this world is headed, I had a hard time sleeping, not because I'm worried about telling the story anymore, because quite honestly, I'm done telling the story. I don't give a flying crap. If you don't get it at this point, you're not going to get it. I'm worried about my family. I'm worried about their children. I'm worried about my town. I'm worried about Texas, quite honestly. I'm really to the point now where I'm like, if the Northeast wants to go to hell, let them. Let them. I don't really care. I have to care about the things that I can affect. I mean, this is what led me to my alcoholism. I can only care about the things that I can affect and I can change. I'm not going to change the Northeast. You think you're going to change New York City? No. What are the things that you can actually affect? You can affect yourself. You can affect your family. And beyond that, I mean, you have a hard time even affecting your family at times. You can affect them, but you can't control them. You can only control yourself, and you can't control the circumstances that you find yourself in. But we have to save the things that we can save. And we have to save our states. We have to save our cities. We have to save our children. And the best way to save those is to get out of the media and get out of the educational system. You're not going to save it if you don't change the way you're educating your kids. We're not going to save it. We've already lost 18 to 29-year-olds. They're done. They're done. How old's your kid? Do you know what your kid's being taught? Do you know what NBC yesterday said about Thanksgiving? NBC said that it was nothing but oppression, disease, slavery, and death. That's what Thanksgiving is all about. That's MSNBC.
What?
Really? Yeah, oh yeah. No,
what
just
was the crux of that?
Oh, just an anti European settlers kind of rant. Fine. And I thought to myself, when I saw that, I thought, how do you get there?
Wow.
Well, you get there through education. And years and years and years of education. Stuff that we turned a blind eye to since the 1960s. We've just turned a blind eye to it. And we said, well, you know what? We're in the majority. No, we're not in the majority. If America can say that the week of Thanksgiving and not be on fire, if somebody can actually say those words, if CNN can do the coverage that they do on Israel and call it the international city, and we can't see what terrorists really look like anymore, it's only from decades of brainwashing. Texas is now teaching, we have the curriculum here, Texas is now teaching that the Boston Tea Party was terrorism. Texas. You know who's bringing this to our attention? The 9/12 Project. The 9/12 Project is in the schools, and they're looking at it, and they can't get a copy of the curriculum.
How can they not get a copy?
It's part of Cscope, this Texas Education Service Center Curriculum Collaborative. And you can't, let's see, it was explained to me, the old-fashioned need a textbook. But today's world, this is from one of our 9/12 people, we don't need a book. I just wanted access to the materials being taught to my kids. They eventually offered to allow me to schedule a 30-minute time slot on campus to review the entire curriculum. I was never able to convince them that reviewing the curriculum for 30 minutes one day did nothing to help me as a parent assist my child in his studies. It was at this point I began to research Cscope. I began to see who the authors were and their philosophical leanings, blah, 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 blah. Our kids have no textbooks to bring home. It was explained to me that all the curriculum is now online. I was, however, not allowed to access or read the new online curriculum. Instead, I was directed to the parent portal. The parent portal lists the objectives for the day, but it has no narrative associated with it.
Unacceptable.
It was explained to me that the main online section is where teachers create their lessons plan and the scope and their sequence. This, since this was their intellectual property, they had to protect this portion of the curriculum and restrict the access.
Nope. Sorry.
And listen to me. You go find out if your school is using Cscope, because we do have the lesson on terrorism, and it's wonderful because it and I'll give it to you later on in the program. It talks a little bit about the Boston Tea Party and how the Boston Tea Party was terror. That's Texas. And if your kids are in there, pull them out today. Pull them out today. We cannot allow another day of our children being taught lies and filth about the country. We can't. We have to look closer to home. Forget about Washington. Forget about the GOP. Look closer to home. We'll get back to Washington. We'll make sure Freedom Works is there. They're working for it. They'll alert. There are the grassroots people are looking. They'll alert. We have to stay in touch. But right now they're trying to take down Rubio now for a 2016 election. Can we wait a day?